All right, all right, all right. Welcome, you loyal listeners, to another episode of Agency Intelligence Podcast, where I give you a real agent inside a real agency, giving you the real agency intelligence and not the artificial that they try to make you believe out there. So, this is Cass, and today I am here with Elliot Bassett. I said that to him. I said, "Is it Bassett?" He looked at me and said, "No." And I'm like, "Yeah, there's an A in there, Cass." Elliot Bassett, you guys know him out there. He's a podcaster. He's an agency owner. He's a badass insurance agent. He's everything that you and I are, loyal listeners. Elliot, welcome to the podcast, brother.
What's going on, man? Happy to be here. Appreciate it.
Man, good times, great oldies. I say that all the time. But okay, so let me move my mat in here a little bit so I can get a little closer. So Elliot, dude, brother, today I'm telling all loyal listeners know probably from looking at maybe the record the headline, I guess I should say, of the podcast, but we're going to talk about our prospecting and actually our ways that we prospect. We're going to hear we're going to compare things that maybe we did together. We had no plan to do this until last about 10 minutes.
Yeah,
I said,
perfect.
let's get down with the agency, right? Before we do, loyal listeners, I need you to do something. I haven't asked you to do this, and things have changed. Apple Podcasts changed the game on the back end. Literally everybody nationwide, not nationwide, worldwide, saw an average decrease of 27 to 37% of their downloads. And the longer that the podcast had been around, the more they saw the decrease. With us being around since 2013, we were actively up there around 70 to 80,000 listeners a month. And I'll be there with you. We're down to 30, 35. We literally lost probably 40%, which is good because we want the real numbers. Mm-hmm. But what had happened is people had followed us years ago that weren't listening to us anymore, and they didn't declare them as a follower. So they dropped that off, right? So that was a really, really different thing. So what do I need? I need you to go to your Spotify, go to your Apple, write us a review. Be sure to click follow us, please. You're really, really helping us out because it's the way that we spread it to other agents, all right? Elliot, absolutely. So, dude, give us a little background. Tell us in about, 2 or 3 minutes your background of where you were born and how you got here.
Yeah, man, I was born and raised in Nebraska. That's where our firm's located. Our firm was started in 1906, so we have long history. But I started in 2010, a kind of quasi family involvement in the firm. But traditional P&C firm for most of that, and then about 8 or 9 years ago, we really transitioned into more of a risk management, risk advisory, consultative selling model. All those things that, we'll get into some of today. But we've grown significantly over that time period. We've over doubled the firm in the last few years. So significant growth, but all on the back of kind of what we're going to talk about here today. So we're in, P&C, we have a benefits arm, we have a wealth strategies arm, and then we have a business solutions, which is some unique kind of consultative stuff that we do. So wide variety.
I say this a lot. I say this a lot. Tell me if this is true. You can be the best salesperson in the world, but yet be the worst prospector, and you're going to have problems. Oh, you could be the best prospector in the world and not a very good salesperson, and you're going to make a lot of money. You agree?
Yeah, I had to think about that for a second. Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah. I mean,
if you're a good prospector, you can get enough in the funnel.
Yeah, I was going to say, you get more in the top, and yeah, they're going to use you can close a lower percentage.
So and it doesn't mean that, but you also learn. So I'm not saying one way is better than the other, but prospecting is important. That's the key.
Yeah.
So tell me why you would say that that's a strength in your agency, Elliot. What are you guys doing?
We've just put a lot of thought into it. We've tried a lot of things, right? We've tried the cold calling scripts. We've tried, about every prospecting technique you can do. And we've done it from the standpoint of, and this is what I think is a big issue in our industry, is most firms build books of business, not build a business. What I mean by that is producers, it's just, hey, Jason, we're going to hire you next Monday and go out and sell some stuff, And so it's up to you to figure out what's my prospecting strategy, et cetera, et cetera. And so, we kind of identified that internally as a hurdle to scaling the firm. And so we've put a lot of thought, not that it's never 100% figured out, right? But
Never.
we're always
Never.
tweaking it. But we've put a lot of thought into how are we as a company going to go out and generate leads, and then how do they get from point A of knowing us to being a client of ours, and then what does it look like after that? And so, really, just that process of bringing together our team and saying, we're going to have a few different avenues that we're going to get really good at. That's how we're going to bring leads into the organization. And so, again,
Love it.
there's not one, right? It's not okay, everybody's going to cold call, but we have a few different avenues, and then it's kind of up to those individuals and those sales roles as to which they're going to go implement, right?
So what are some of those avenues that you're exercising there?
Yeah. So we have a pretty set process that we would use for centers of influence. Is number one.
It.
So, yeah, and we take, that I know what everybody's thinking, like, oh, I go to the banker or the real estate agent or whatever, and tell me when your clients are closing loans and stuff. I'm like, sure, those can be great, but there's a much more in-depth process behind how you should build centers of influence relationships or relationships with COIs to get referrals and to get the right referrals, right? Because we all know that not every referral is the same. And so we've built a process around that, again, that's pretty in depth, and that if that's a strategy we're going to go implement with one of our risk advisors, then here's the model that we can go do. And what we found by doing it that way is you don't need 50 referral sources. If you've got the right ones, you might need 5, depending on your target clients and what you're going after. And so that's a big piece of it. So we have a COI.
So Elliot, let's hold on. Let's pop right there. Now remember where you're at. You said COI or something, so remember that.
Yeah.
But going back to that, how are you creating those relationships? How are you strategically saying this is somebody there? And then when you do point them out, how do you get them into that relationship? Or at least maybe there's not a process, but how did it work for you?
Oh no, there's definite process. We
it.
actually just on Getting Past the Premium, we did a whole episode on COIs because that's how detailed of a process it can be.
When did you record that so they know when to look for that?
2 or 3 weeks ago.
2 or 3 weeks ago. And where can they find it again in case they haven't heard about it, Elliot?
Getting Past the Premium is the name of the podcast.
Yep, okay. And would you remember the name of the? Okay, super. Thank you, Elliot.
And that's on the agency intelligence feed as well, so they can find it there.
Yeah. Imagine all the good ones.
But so it's interesting, part of that process is, most of the times we go in and when we say I'm trying to get you to be my referral source. I'm going to go in and try to tell you all the fancy stuff that I do and the reasons why you should introduce me to your clients or whatever, right? Well,
right.
If you really want to build the relationship with that person that allows them to be confident in referring you into their clients, you need to almost take the exact opposite approach. First, I want to learn about you, Jason. What do you do? Who do you work with? Like, how do you operate? Like, I really want to go deep on your process and what you do and build a relationship with you. And then once I've done that, so there's about a 2-meeting process that we'll talk about there, 2 steps. And then I'll say, hey, I'd love to do the same for you. Naturally, a lot of times that COI is going to say, Elliot, I want to know about your process too, But if not, you can say, hey, I'd love to take you through ours just as I learned about yours and see if there's some natural fits here. And then you can walk them through your process, what you do for clients, what differentiates you. But you're at a much different stage of that relationship when you do that way, And so
I love it.
It is a pretty detailed process in how we do that, but it's effective when you do it right.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. And then you're sitting in front of that person. What kind of center of influence are you? First of all, what type of business are you going after? And what type of center of influence? Is it specific to the business or a community?
Yeah, it's so our target market is centered around small to medium-sized, privately held, community-based businesses. So, we have some industries, I wouldn't call them true industry niches, but we have some industries we focus on. But that's who we're targeting, right? And those that want to perpetuate their companies long-term. And so we look for who are those trusted advisors to those types of business owners. So it certainly can be the easy ones, right? Like a trusted attorney, a trusted banker, a trusted, accountant and whatever. And again, those are good ones that we should consider building those relationships with. But I also think it's important to try to think about who surrounds those business owners that may not be the traditional COI, right? Who do they look for advice, or who knows all of those
Good
different people
stuff,
in
Elliot.
that segment, right? And that can
Mm-hmm.
be so many different things. I mean, I've heard of some really unique referral sources out there that you just wouldn't think about. Like a golf, I remember talking to one agent, not at our firm, but that got a ton of their target leads from the golf pro at the local country club because they knew everybody, so they told their
Mm-hmm.
story, built a relationship, and got a lot of good referrals from that. And so, there isn't necessarily a magic sauce around that. It's just really getting thoughtful about who sits around your target client, and how can I go and actively build relationships. The other thing too is don't
Elliot,
overthink it. Ask your client. Like, ask your
ah.
clients, right? So go ahead. Sorry.
No, 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 no. And one of the things I did when I went from one community to another when I was younger, the first person I went and saw was I went and saw the chamber director, right? And then I went and saw the mayor, and I had lunch with them.
Yeah.
And the reason why I did that was, first of all, I went to their office and then asked them for lunch. Didn't call them. Came to them first. Got to give, take, right?
Yep.
So I wanted to show them my appreciation and respect. But what was cool is even as a young 25, 26-year-old, whenever I would go speak to other people, I'd be like, well, you know what? I was just having lunch with the mayor the other day and I was talking about
Yeah.
that, right? So sometimes your centers of influence, just their influence allows you to now have influence with other people in ways you wouldn't have. And then it's like, you went out with the mayor. How was that? Well, now you're in the midst of a whole conversation. If it's somebody, I always say this, I've never taken advice from someone who had a smaller W-2 than me. Took that from Jim Rohn.
Yeah.
But if you're speaking, opposite effect happens. You're speaking to someone with a higher W-2 than you. You're gonna reach that, and
Yeah.
in doing something like that, you can really get a head start on that. And the best thing to ask is, hey, who would be the next person that I could do? And I used to always tell people the reason why I'm here is I just want to be successful like you.
Yeah.
I really do. Now this didn't work. This wouldn't work so much if I was 46. Maybe it would. But when I was 25, 30, I want to be more like you. And they would love it. So who else can I see that's more like you? Right.
100%.
And then boom. And then you call them up and you're like, hey, the mayor told me I need to give you a call. And it's the president of the hospital. He's taking that lunch. You know what I mean? So it keeps going. So that was something that I found to be helpful when I was trying to find those COIs.
I agree. And two things there. I mean, what I've found is, especially, younger in your career, as you mentioned, people want to help. Like, we oftentimes feel awkward about asking for help, but we really shouldn't. Most good people in the world want to help the next,
It's true.
anybody that asks. And it really, as long as they can help. But then you mentioned going to them. And I didn't get into that specific, but the first part of that COI process that I mentioned is we make it specific. We're going to go to them, meet at their office, meet in person with them. Because again, it's like you said, we want to show that we're committing to learning about them and in their environment and, whatever it be. Because guess what? We eventually want to get them into our environment, which is, our office. They can see how we work, et cetera. But yeah, so your process was similar to how we modeled the front end of ours.
I was brand new. I had a 2-year-old and I had no presents under the tree, man. I had to do a lot, so I was doing everything I could. My buddy Ryan Hanley always says rubber sole shoes on the concrete, baby. Yep. That's what we were doing. So yeah. So, okay. That's great. So that COIs is one. That's a fantastic one. What are some other ones?
Yeah. So, correlated to that would just be referrals in general, right? I know everybody wants referrals, but again, there's a difference between wanting referrals and a difference between having a process at which you're going to get referrals, right? And so we have a process that we use with our clients called a feed forward session. It isn't required at this point, right? But it's if you kind of want to set your client up to get you referrals, you can use this meeting to allow you to do that. Dan Allison is the guy that taught us how to do it. He's taught it online. I believe you can probably find
Feeding forward. Is that what you said?
Feed forward. Yep. Feed forward
Feed
session.
forward. That's cool.
Yeah. And so there's 6 steps that Dan teaches within that. And it's just, again, it's a systematic way for you to set your client up in the right mind space, the right headspace to give you referrals over time. And some clients might tell you they don't want to, and that's what it allows you to do also, right? I don't want to come to you 6 times and say, hey, Jason, can you give me a referral to this guy? And you're like, dude, I don't give referrals. I don't want to give referrals. I'm not comfortable giving referrals. It's gonna not go good, right? But if I can have a conversation with you up front that sets that up, and you say, yeah, you guys have done a great job. If you come across anybody that you want me to refer you to, I'd love to. Great. Now I have an open door to have that conversation with you. And
Love that.
And we do that on an ongoing basis. Every year or so, we want to have an update to this feed forward session. But it really is just that. It's a way to set your client up so that they are willing to, and that you understand they're willing to give you referrals into certain people, and that they know. This was an interesting thing that Dan kind of talked through with us. He did a bunch of research, surveyed business owners and things, and what he found was a lot of business owners don't give referrals because they don't know that you want referrals. They think that you're too full. You got too many clients, not too many clients, but you've got a full book. Shit. Like, you must be doing good, Jason. Like, yeah, they don't know that you want to grow, which seems dumb to us, right? But that's how a lot of people think. And
Great insight, Elliot.
He has it proved in data, and so that's what he was saying. Is one of his first steps is telling your client that you are actively looking for other business owners like them that you can bring into your world. And I thought that was great insight, because something you don't really think about as being so obvious is, I need to tell my clients that I'd like to bring on more clients. Like, yes, you do.
Very similar to putting like your booking request link into your email signature. You'll notice that you get more meetings, and if you're able to track it, probably 5 to 10% of those meetings come from that, where you never really thought about, but now it makes it easier, right? If you're giving every other way somebody can contact you, but why not just give them your damn calendar? You know what I mean? So it makes sense, right? Now technology allows that. And this is what's great about this, Elliot. This is what I'm thinking about as you're talking. And our loyal listeners really listen to this. You got 2 tech geeks here that none of this is required tech. Yeah, we used it here and there, but mainly it's rubber sole shoes, walking in, sitting down, having a conversation with them. Now, you may use technology to help get the data, maybe focus on the area you want to go to, but I think your best comes from just knowing who is the movers and shakers in your community. And, ChatGPT can't even tell you that. So I will say there are some prospecting tools out there that are getting pretty damn good. You can start to see where they'll be in 2 to 3 years. But Elliot, so keep going. Anything else? And I mean, so doing all this, how did that evolve into you see that this is a process that you teach your producers and your agents? Do you teach it to your CSRs? Is it something you teach everybody? How's that in the agency?
Yeah, that's a good question. Probably not as much as we should. Now that you say that, because we have, client facing service team members, right? Our client advocates. And they have a general understanding of, these things, but it's definitely the onus falls on the risk advisor, which is our producer.
That makes sense.
To implement it, right? But, that kind of gives me a good reminder that we could always, implement further, because like you just said, the tech thing is so spot on. So I'm a big believer success leaves clues. And typically those clues go back a long time, because the things that drive success are timeless, right? They just work.
That's right, brother.
We can use tech. I mean, Ryan Hanley is a friend as well. And I love how he's always said human optimized agency, right? So use tech to drive the human relationship. So make the things like scheduling and the things that nobody likes to do as easy as possible through technology, but then don't supplant the human relationship. Right. And I think because that's what works, that's what makes sense. And so, that's a good point.
The human relationship. And you can tie into that. How many times do you have, not you, Elliot, I'm talking to everybody here, all agency owners, anybody, and especially if you're a CSR listening to this, your agency owner or sales manager is telling you that you need to cross-sell accounts, which means you need to find weaknesses in the policy while the customer's on the phone and started talking to that. And you know why you don't do it? You don't do it because you're scared that they might actually say, yeah, let me get a quote on that, right? Because they're so damn busy, right? They're so damn busy. This is the point of technology. get the BS off of them so that when they have that opportunity, they're going to have that call because they don't have to worry about the fact that they got 7 freaking things that they have to do. Maybe they
Preach,
only have
brother.
1 or 2, right? Yeah, I know.
Preach.
I know. And it's okay because this is preaching now, but it's going to, as long as we keep doing it, Elliot, me
I
and you
agree.
and everybody, we'll start becoming smart business owners. I say this all the time, man. And this is part of my new stuff that I'm talking about. The great separator is just not about technology. The great separator, separating your agency, Elliot, from the rest of the pack, is all about the fact of internal and external as well. So, internally, if you don't adapt to the ways that people work in society, if you don't adapt to technology and take the burdensome work off of them, you're going to lose the good people and they're going to go to Elliot. So now you're losing good talent and that. Now that's going to probably cause you to lose your customers, which if you're not giving your externally, if you're not giving internally good,
Oh,
externally you're not getting good. And then you have your competition, right? You have Jason Cass and Elliot that you're competing against. And we've been doing this shit. And then all of a sudden in 2025, you go, you know what? I think I'm going to start doing that. Well, shit, it's going to take you 3, 4 years just to catch up to us. And technology is going so fast, it's going to go faster, right?
yeah.
And you start to see this divide, Elliot. And, my buddy Jeff Roy says it AI will not replace agents, but those agents who use AI will replace those who do not.
So
It's
true.
just that simple. And here's the deal in the battle for our time and money in AI, the person who controls, if people say, oh, AI is going to put people out of business, you know who controls that? The agency owner. Because AI is not going to put them out of business. Who's going to put them out of business is when you don't adopt the AI and now they don't have a place to work.
Yeah.
That's what's going to put them out of business. That's what's going to fire people. And so I got my new stuff I'm doing across America. It's called AI, your secret weapon for the battle of your money and time. And
Nice.
I think that if people can start realizing that, it's going to make them, by doing the things that we're talking about. Elliot, I want you to wrap it up. I try to keep them 20, 25 minutes. I think that this was just damn red meat juicy. So what do you want to close it up with, man?
Yeah, I think it'd be good to pin something that you mentioned there around AI, because again, tech obviously is in the forefront of everybody's conversations right now, and it always gets the bad rap of like it's going to put people out of business and whatnot. And sure, there are going to be roles that
Mm-hmm.
it's going to replace, but I want to do the flip side of that, right? Like every firm that's growing right now, I guarantee if we interviewed 100 firms, 100 out of 100 would say I have really hard time finding people right now. You'd probably agree with that, right?
I agree
So
100%.
I feel like what we
Any
need,
industry,
any industry, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and ours is no different. And so if we want to look at, if we're growing our firms and we're trying to scale and we're trying to do bigger and better things, we're going to need to do more work, right? We're going to need more quote unquote people, unless we think about it differently. And this is to me where AI and technology can really help us
Mm-hmm.
improve what we're doing. And again, back to Ryan Hanley, actually I think it was at Indie Tech. He talked about, if we look at the next few years and we're going to need 10 people, he goes, we need to start to think about how do we need 3 to get the same amount of output. And that's because it's going to be difficult to find those 10. And so AI, whether it's AI or other tech tools, can come in to do a lot of that back office stuff. Then you can elevate the training of your people to elevate their game and being in front of your clients and doing the things that actually matter, that humans are good at, right? And that's where I think I agree with you. I think it's going to make that separation even more. The firms that look at it that way, as an abundance mindset, rather than oh my gosh, this is going to put me out of business mindset, are going to be the ones that win long term. And so I'd encourage
Mm-hmm.
everybody from that perspective, just get in the game with it. Just start to try to use some of these tools that you don't know until you try. And so that'd be my
Correct.
soapbox as well to get on for a minute.
I'm with you, man. Elliot, I feel it. And I just think as long as we keep pushing it, the things that are happening today are the things that we were pushing 5, 10, 15 years ago.
Yep.
And we just got to keep doing it, it's great. Great. Appreciate you. Appreciate having you on the network. Appreciate all you that do for just spreading the message. Back in 2013, when we started it, Elliot, we started with creating forward momentum and change in the greatest industry God ever created by giving a voice to those who have no voice. That was the thing that was. I had people come up to me when I was speaking. Excuse me, nose is itching. I would have people come up to me and they would he would talk to me and say, Jason, I have this idea. This was in 2009, 2010, when I'm on stage speaking. They'd say, Jason, I have this idea. And I'd say to him, why are you telling me this? And this one guy said to me, actually wasn't a guy. He was about a 21, 22-year-old kid. He was a couple years younger than me. He said, because you have the microphone. That's what he said to me. And I thought to myself, and I'm a thinker, so I started thinking about that. I'm thinking, damn, he is right. People do listen to me, whether I'm wrong or right. So why don't you shut up, Jason, and go get other people who are smarter than you, and then like talk to them on the microphone. And now people are hearing them, right? And it was about giving a voice to those who had no voice, which if you look up is actually one of the definitions of influence. So that's why I named it Agents Influence Podcast. Just behind the scenes. God, my nose is, I apologize, buddy. All of a sudden, it's the beautiful Florida weather. Just the beautiful Florida weather. Elliot, where do you live?
Omaha, Nebraska.
Omaha, Nebraska. Boy, they don't.
Right now.
Well, Omaha, Nebraska. It's beautiful. It's a good part.
That's right. We always get a bad rap in the flyover state, but I encourage everybody. Actually, don't come check it out. We don't need. We like it the way it is.
Right. See, it's Hanley that says that shit. It's the East Coasters and the West Coasters that say that shit. You know what I mean? And you know what? Us Midwesterners, we don't want to be like you anyways. You know what I mean? So like you said, Elliot, just stay over there. No, I'm joking. But anyways, but we're not. All right, man. Elliot, I do appreciate you. And for all you loyal listeners, you know what I do. I do it for you. So tell me your thoughts and tell me your ideas, and I'm going to tell the world what you have to say. This has been Jason Cass. He's Elliot Bassett, and we are out.